On this, our final day of the Women in Calypso Symposium, we have Bianca Nandy Jacob Stevenson. She was born in England to parents from Point Fortin, Trinidad and Tobago. Like many children of the Windrush generation, she was mailed backwards over the Atlantic Ocean to an aunt in Trinidad. This informs her study and career choices. Nandy works mostly in the Caribbean and immigrant spaces. She's a journalist, playwright, director, and teaching artist, currently residing in the United States. Nandy's plays have been performed and anthologized. Her essays have been published in peer-reviewed journals. She has presented at several conferences, including the National Black Writers Conference and Brooklyn Roots Festival. Her play Flambeau was the first Caribbean play to sweep the Audelco Awards, including the accolade Musical Production of the Year. Nandy is the author of The True Nanny Diaries, and editor of The Progress of Winsford Devine, a collection of Caribbean lyrics. And so we have Bianca Nandy Jacob Stevenson with The Lyrics Man, a great composer, and the nation he carried.
Thank you, Amah, for that introduction. I really appreciate you, and I am grateful to be a part of this conference and community of Calypso lovers worldwide as we come in to check on the art form and, most importantly, to check on each other as, you know, as people who are invested in the art form. So I thank you. I will begin my presentation today with an ode to none other than the greatest composer of Calypso, in my view, Dr. Winsford Devine. Every year somebody there give us cause to shed a tear and mourn, for they are gone. Now all that's left is a faint memory based on the theme of a strange melody. Still, we must think of them and recall their image with pride, telling people from deep inside, this is dedicated to those who died. Winsford Devine, I'll always remember. He jumped in when a steel band passed, playing mass. Sugary, peppery, Devine was never ever one for class. Winsford Devine, wherever you are compared, just for you, I come out with real fire this year. Winsford Devine, 1944 to 2021. Writing a biographical essay is fraught with hard choices. One must make sense, create conclusions about someone's emotions during their lived experiences that may be of historical or literary importance. After death, these choices a biographer makes are far more challenging as life becomes legacy and the colors that an outsider gleans from their stories assumes an outside importance. Lucky for us, Devine, in his own words, spoke of an overriding issue that plagued his life. He said, on March 28, 2020, many, if not most members of the public believe that I am just a disgruntled, bitter old man. But I say to picture this. I am writing songs for big performers, some of whom travel all over the world, earning thousands of dollars before performing songs. I composed and wrote for them. And I am at home with a wife and 7 children to feed and send to school. And they never come and offer a $5 or $10 to help. I got bounce checks. How I survived, God only knows. I cried at nights when our babies cried. I can't help it. I am not Jesus Christ. When Devine uttered these words, he was our own Edgar Allan Poe, dying penniless, without commiserate recompense. Because this pain he carried so texturized his body of work, one cannot study his corpus without acknowledging the anguish wrought by the art. Now, not every Devine lyric is profound, nor every rhythm suite, but cushioned within his 600-strong catalog are timeless gems that have influenced cultural movements, shaped political thought, and fueled his nation's propensity for bacchanal. Unarguably, it is Divine's anthems that have most accurately reflected the pulse of 3 generations of Trinidadians and Tobagonians. Yet reward was slow in coming to Divine, as a general idiosyncrasy of the music industry is that, and that's worldwide, is that fame and fortune favors singers, not composers. Say Progress, for example, which is Divine's most celebrated song, and it is the singer King Austin that springs to mind. Say Miss Mary, and one immediately thinks of Sparrow. In scores of cases, there's this observed disconnect between Divine's and his great compositions. Divine's role in Calypso then evolved into that of the kingmaker. He has no title of his own. He earned no title of his own until, of course, UWI eventually gave him a doctorate, honorary doctorate, but he birthed many a monarch. In Trinidad and Tobago's fiercely combative culture, where government-sponsored competition is the traditional iron fortress between the sheep and the goats, many singers have used Divine's work as a blowtorch past mediocrity. In 1980, for example, Progress catapulted King Austin, who was then a bit player, into the finals of the prestigious Calypso Monarch competition. Decades later, Progress has remained Calypso's platinum standard, seemingly lionizing King Austin to perpetuity. Another minor singer, the mighty Trini, also stormed the Calypso five-done with Divine's work. Of a privileged Syrian background, the mighty Trini had tried for years to succeed in an arena that has largely remained steeped in its origins as African, male, and working class. In the mid-80s, Divine began to mentor the singer, and by 1987, the mighty Trini had made a noteworthy entrance into the party circuit with Carita Banca. In an email correspondence in 2003, the singer said, had he not met Divine, then there would have never been a mighty Trini. The mighty Trini entered the upper echelon of Calypso with Sailing in 1988, a patriotic, emotive Calypso that reflects Divine's skill at using music to shape public perception. Sailing was released during a time of economic and political and social upheaval in Trinidad and Tobago. We had foreign exchange reserves that had dwindled, unemployment had mushroomed to 22%, and other negative economic factors had emerged, which would later give rise to the sort of IMF style chokehold, austerity politics. Politically, the newly minted government of the National Alliance for Reconstruction had begun to fracture along coalition lines. Compounding the instability was the public release of the government-sponsored Scott Commission drug report, which had implicated prominent private and public sector officials in an international cocaine conspiracy. Naturally, these events provided good fodder for that aspect of Calypso that has remained true to its protest roots. Many Calypsonians took the predictable route, singing delicious Calypso for Trinidad and Tobago's notoriously scandal-loving public. Sailing was different. It was allegoric, a song that depicted Trinidad and Tobago as a boat, political and social economic challenges as rough weather, and featured an unabashedly patriot protagonist who not only, rejected mutiny, but is determined to stabilize the boat. This demonstration of literary prowess in song caught the public's imagination, and throughout the nation, citizens crooned along with the mighty Trini's soothing incarnation. If Trinidad is a boat sailing on the earth, I will sail on it. Oh God, I will sail on it. Whether it sink or float, and wheresoever it go, I go in with it. I go in with it. I will sail when the tide is slack. I will sail when the tide is nipped. If she go into hell and back, I go make the trip. I bound to make the trip. If Trinidad is a boat, I go sail on it. I'm sure this song is just springing to every man, everyone's, the music, the lyrics, and that was Divine's. You just say one word, and even if you can't sing like me, the lyrics, just spring to mind. And that's, that was just the essence of who Divine was. Certainly, the lyrics like Sailing, wrapped in this saccharine melody, could augment public confidence in the best of times. Released during the worst of times, Sailing was that burst of oxygen that resuscitated national pride. Divine did that. The Mighty Trinity earned a spot in the 1988 Calypso Monarch Finals, confronting class and race barriers in Calypso. Divine's work also broke feminist grounds, as his song brought female calypsonians acclaim in this patriarchal domain, supporting the budding women's movement in Trinidad and Tobago. Divine was instrumental in the career of 1970s calypsonian singing Francine, who stunned the nation in 1975 when she placed second, sandwiched between the legendary Lord Kitchener and Mighty Sparrow, in what was then known as the Calypso King competition. Francine's unprecedented success with Divine St. Peter's Day and It's a Shame drew much needed positive attention to Calypso women. Trinidad Express entertainment specialist, then Terry Joseph, who was a great loss, now deceased, said that back then in both Rose and Calypso, labored long in Calypso tents that didn't even facilitate them with separate dressing rooms and often left them to jostle with men for spaces on the playbill or even in the washrooms. Francie's close encounter with the crown, together with Calypso Rose and singing Diane's presence in the 1975 finals, effectively triggered debate about the real possibility of a Calypso woman king, prompting the adoption of the gender-neutral Calypso Monarch title. The evolution was most timed to accommodate Calypso Calypso Rose, I think it's a 1978 win. Divine later writing for Francine, supported the feminist and human rights crusade she had embraced early in her career. Divine's Save Our Domestics, released by Francine in 1977, for example, presents the plight of domestic workers as a collective problem requiring a national solution. He said, "She's a toy for the master, a slave for the mistress. It's high time somebody, somewhere, do something to save our domestics." In a few short strokes, the duo gave voice to the mass of scrunting African women who then and even sometimes now subsist on the scraps of the well-to-do. These issues of gender and class are recurring themes in Divine's work. Steelband Woman, for example, also crusades on behalf of African women, but the voice here applauds these women for succeeding against the odds. Pissabed Melanie, Picky Head Charity, these girls never had a schooling, they couldn't even sing. But linemen around their favorite panyard, well, they studied hard. Now I tell you, they are super bad. See them how they jam in panorama night. See them how they looking bright. See them how they moving light, just smiling and showing their hips left and right. They're shaking their waist, they set in the place with rhythm and grace. Them Steelband Woman is the sweetest thing in this place. Ironically, Divine celebrates so-called Badoman for totally rejecting propriety and convention. The unbridled beauty and pioneering efforts of the woman in Divine's poem challenges every notion ever held about women from John, Caledonia, and other vibrant, marginalized populations of Africans in Trinidad and Tobago. Not only did Steelband Woman shine a rare positive light on female cultural trailblazers, it also gave the Steelband a nudge towards respectability. In a 2005 interview, Divine said that a female official from the grassroots National Joint Action Committee once accused him of denigrating women in his work. He said he didn't write a single one of those specific calypso she had taken issues with, but he said he still humbly received the message. And always, he said he tried to consider women's views when he wrote. Now, this is not to say that a convincing case cannot be made against Divine for objectifying women in song, but such an argument merely supports the paradoxical nature of art. Divine himself is confused by the contradictions of his work, noting that he was disturbed by the comments of a female reporter who expressed Divine's disbelief that the same man who composed Progress also composed a Pulling Down the Panty Tonight. Irrespective of his mixed legacy, his role as a path clearer for women remains one of his greatest achievements. This path clearing and pioneering work that he did was also evident in the formative years of superstar Marshall Montano, whose career basically was launched with Divine songs at a junior calypso competition. His parents had hired Divine to write some songs, and later Divine caught a glimpse of the little star on television. His immediate impression was that Marshall too young to soca. Divine then got to work on Marshall's debut album, aptly called, of course, Too Young to Soca. Marshall's powerful debut album earned him a place among the big 8 bound for the big yard. And those days, the calypso competition is not what we know it now, Those days, that calypso competition would, galvanize the nation around it. Really only the best of the best could make, and plenty bards who were really good still were never able to penetrate that 8 that would show up every year at the March Gras. So now we're talking here about the biggest, the biggest of the biggest. And there was Marshall among them, right? On competition night, Marshall placed 5th in a field of decorated veterans, including Black Stallion, who won the crown that night, King David Michael Rudder, the defending monarch, and Duke, who is the winner of, he's the only winner of a calypso hat trick. At age 11, with the creative support from Divine, Marshall became the youngest finalist in the history of the 36-year-old competition. Divine's work has not only been commissioned by the inexperienced or peripheral singers, but also by professional calypsonians with solid records of creating and performing. So, Mighty Sparrow was such a client. And friends, this is where the whole thing gets sticky, and a lot of what Divine's angst was about throughout his life, right? These issues surrounding copyright and royalties. So Sparrow, of course, was the understood, probably even then, greatest calypsonian to have ever walked, the world maybe. And he had a song reputation earned before Divine had even begun his own professional career in writing. Yet, as testaments to Divine's artistry and prowess in writing and composing, the melody and the music, the melody, music, and the lyrics, right? When his work came to the attention of the King Sparrow, Sparrow started using Divine songs for the next 17 years. According to copyright documents, and this document is, you can see this document in the book, The Progress for Winds for Divines, which I edited. Divine wrote over 80 songs for Sparrow and co-wrote several others. Queen of the Band, the first Divine composition that Sparrow recorded, was the winning tune in the 1971 Panorama competition. The following year, Divine's Rope was one of 2 calypsos that brought the bard the crown after 9 years. In 1973, a Divine's composition, Same Time, Same Place, I like that one, was one half of the winning salvo that again earned Mighty Sparrow the crown. In 1974, this time singing 2 Divine's compositions, Miss Mary and We Passed That Stage, Sparrow won what would be his last crown for 18 years. From the Divine Sparrow collaboration also came some of the richest and best known recordings of the genre, including the tear-jerking Memories. That's where that poem came from, that I started with. The humorous Philip My Dear, the satirical Steam Beam, and the politically explosive Isolate South Africa. Yet the relationship would later implode when the 2 geniuses drew swords over copyright. Now, one would think that by that time, calypso music had made that swiftly from, cottage to the commercial industry, right? One would have assumed that by the 1980s, a workable copyright law would have been in place to educate stakeholders about regulations governing intellectual property. This was not so. Consequently, it was not until Divine had worked as a commercial songwriter for 15 years that he happened on information about certain rights that neither a bill of sale nor a gentleman's handshake could ever erase that belongs to a writer, from a writer. Divine said in an April 2005 telephone interview, during that time, Blakey and Sparrow were singing my songs and putting their names. Yet he says he was not overly concerned with the practice until his friend, celebrated now deceased pan maestro Clyde Bradley, asked him one day, Joker, You know anything about copyright? That question must have hung thickly in the air as Devine and Bradley stood in a yard on Nelson Street, a fitting background for the action that would eventually come down that seemed drawn straight from the Bajan years. Devine said he told Bradley, I don't know nothing about no copyright. He said that Bradley wrote a letter and sent him to 2 top attorneys asking them to handle the copyright matter. According to Devine, the lawyers contacted the British Songwriters Guild on his behalf, requesting that his body of work be credited accordingly. There was, of course, a big stumbling block, as Devine was asking for rights to songs that other artists had already claimed with the Guild. Devine admits that he set aside legal options when he went, led by a Bajan friend and his understudy, to Blakey and Sparrow, demanding his rights be restored. Meeting resistance on both missions, Devine said the Bajan made both Calypsonians a promise that was prefaced by, watch me, if you don't sign over Joker songs, ... Afforded a few hours of reflection, both Sparrow and Blakey signed in short order, perhaps not sure of the fate that existed at the end of the Bajan's cutlass. Certainly, the urge to survive erased any curiosity whether there was any real action behind the gun talk. In an interview in September 2005 with me, Sparrow pointed out that he and other cultural pioneers had met the industry with its problems. He said, there was no protection, no understanding. We just figured things out as we went along, Sparrow says. Give thanks, Devine now has everything that he's entitled to. However, till the end of his life, Devine begged to differ. So this Sparrow-Devine chemistry, however, you know, the song Sweet, nobody can debate that this, despite what happened between the two men, nobody can debate what they as a pair added to the Calypso lexicon. You know, this chemistry between them epitomizes the creative outpouring that can come with the fusion of a great composer and a great singer in Calypso. Despite the insistence of traditionalists that a Calypsonian must only be somebody who can write and perform his own work. Another Devine partnership that highlights the positive contribution that non-singing composers and non-composing singers can have on the development of the artist and artist platform is the Honey Voice Baron. You know, we know Baron as charismatic and laid back, a sweet man, in his day, a dapper dresser, a soul fish, to use the Trini parlance, just a love where the women are concerned, right? So his reputation is built on Devine songs, such as Somebody and the Jammer. Devine was impressed with his work, most impressed with his work for Baron, noting that every time I hear Somebody, which is the song he composed for Baron, one of the songs, every time I hear Somebody, I get goosebumps because I cannot believe that a melody could be so sweet. Devine's songs for Also Crazy also echo his ability to bring out the best of a performers. Crazy has this, you know, his brand is crazy. So, and a lot of the songs that Devine created for Crazy actually sound crazy, but it worked. So we had songs like Penelope, Cough Medicine, Good with the Wood, and Paul certainly gave Crazy good grist for his mill. Devine's silvery compositions also lend themselves to the steel band interpretation like no other. Well, there's Kitchener, you know, so that one might be debatable, but he up there with Kitchener, right? In 1989, Somebody became the unofficial test piece of steel band competitions all over the world and brought Trinidad and Tobago Renegade Steel Orchestra the National Panorama title. In earlier years, winning steel bands had chosen Sailing, Carita Bianca, the Jammer, Queen of the Band, Did You Hear Me? Cover versions of Devine's material have also appeared on many steel band albums. Alvin Daniel points out in his foreword in the same book, The Progress for Wins for Devines, that the beauty of Devine's music is his unconventional musical assembly. He said, there's no set number of bars for the verse and chorus, or put another way, no set number of lines, he said. Hence, Devine is a Beethoven, he said, end of quote. Hence, Divine is a Beethoven of Calypso for his unique ability to juxtapose disparate keys, fusing them with unexpected notes that somehow melt to form something interesting and something that we remember and something we can sing. The diversity expressed in the musical composition is, of course, evident in the lyrical expression, as Divine has considered the human condition with a brilliance that contradicts his sparse formal education. Divine did not graduate high school. There is literally little under the sun that his pen has left unexplored over the years. Thematically, he looked at science, geography, civics, economics, civilization, culture, technology, history, socialization, development, and so on, a multiplicity of sub-themes. He said that some themes are concrete results of his avid reading and acute listening. Other topics, he said, just happen. Eminent philosopher Carl Jung notes in Man and His Symbols that artists, philosophers, and even scientists owe some of their best ideas to inspirations that appear suddenly from the unconscious. Jung's theory is supported by Divine's account of how progress evolved. Divine said the song came from nowhere in the late 70s as he gazed upon the San Fernando Hill in South Trinidad and realized that it was being grated by machines to make sand. The universal sigh became the song's melody, and the mountains groaned its lyrics. Progress. As the savage hands of unscrupulous men defile everything passed by, time is running out as we eat and drink species at the brink of being extinct. And I think no one can deny that the price of progress is high, real high. This tragic opus calls man into account for the relentless destruction of nature, yet somehow leaves hope that atonement lies somewhere within the human spirit. Recognizing the timeliness and timelessness of progress, the peer-reviewed body Trinidad and Tobago Unified Calypso Organization named the composition Calypso of the Millennium, a great and fitting tribute to an outstanding voice and an accolade that Divine shares with no one. Divine, a profound way of seeing, also resounds in memories. Again, you know, the verse that began this talk. It is no accident that Sparrow's interpretation of the melody's lament could move a listener to tears because memories poured forth as Divine mourned the loss of his stillborn son. That the composer could find a universal message in this intensely personal tragedy and create prose that could encourage others to spare a good thought, reverence one's ancestors, cherish relationship, live life to the fullest, in short, be their best self, is the primary reason for Divine's work. Some Divine's detractors have lumped him among the quacks who are supposedly at some point killing Calypso, based on some compositions which are admittedly less evolved. But without Divine's contribution, many Calypso stars would have never lit the cultural skies. Divine helped women, new and peripheral artists break into Calypso's cognoscenti. He launched generations of soca stars on the capable shoulders of Marshall Montano. On 18 occasions, he sent Calypsonians to the prestigious National Calypso Finals. Divine was a trendsetter, a unique voice, and a catalyst for ideas. Truly, Winsford Joker Divine has made an indelible contribution to cultural progress in Trinidad and Tobago and beyond. He was such a remarkable talent, such a unique voice, the ultimate kingmaker, purveyor, and path clearer, whose true legacy is reflected not in the words of any biographer, but in the greatness of others. Thank you so much.